Welcome everyone, a new Bread and Butter Football podcast. Today we're going to talk about rule changes in football. We're going to talk about some transfers again, and most importantly, the Community Shield on Sunday. Kickoff is upon us. We've got Andrew, Newcastle fan over there, and we've also got Phil again. Spurs wearing those nice colours, but ultimately we're about to start the season, so let's let the banter flow. So if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and press the bell button. But first, opening question. Andrew, I'll start with you first. If you were to change any rule in football, Premier League or whatever league, what would it be?
I think that's an interesting question. Mine personally, there's two main things. One is I'd like us to enforce the diving rule, that players get retrospective bans for diving. It is there and it's been used. I think Niase was the one about a couple of years ago which was used, but since then it's not really been enforced, and it's one of my pet hates. I think that would definitely be one which I would definitely enforce. The other one probably I would go for is how long the ball is actually in play, because I think there's a lot of time wasting that goes on, especially when you play certain times, and maybe sort of like how they come up with the added time, because the ball is out of play for so long. You're not actually getting 90 minutes of football a lot of the time. You're actually getting only in play like 50. I think there was one match, Burnley versus Hull, a couple of years ago. It was 45 minutes in play. It's just ridiculous, really. So yeah, they're probably the two I would think of changing.
Good rules. Makes sense. What about you, Phil?
What I would do, not so much in the Premier League, but in the Cup, if it went to extra time, I think each team should lose one player every 5 minutes off the pitch.
It's not a bad shout, that.
I just think it'd make it a bit more interesting. So, e.g., after 25 minutes, they could potentially be down 6 players aside on a big pitch, which could be quite interesting.
A lot of cramp.
Yeah. Make it interesting, though, for the fans.
There's something like that on FIFA, where you play a game and every time you concede a goal, the other player loses a player. It's quite funny.
I don't know what our players on the pitch have done that.
I know. In terms of me, what I'd change, and this is probably really radical, would be I hate it when teams go out and defend to go for the 0-0, stopping the attacking players trying to attack, and then they just sit back. So my rule would be, if it's 0-0, you don't get any points. Both teams get no points. That would be my rule, random as hell. Probably really, really radical, considering some teams do not score. But yeah, that's my personal opinion. Don't know if you guys agree with that. It's annoying.
Yeah, I think if it's that rule puts the emphasis on scoring, I think it'd be much, much more interesting. I remember Arsenal used to have the Amsterdam Cup where you get a point if you score a goal. So let's say you're 3-0 down, you still have something to play for and you're still going to go for it because you'd get a point for scoring a goal. So yeah, I think there is got to be some positive kind of attack, because at the moment I think a lot of people feel football's becoming much, much more defensive because of the gaps between the top teams and the lower teams.
Yeah, there's a big divide, I think, in terms of even if you're just playing any team. Like, use Newcastle as an example. If they're comfortable in the middle of the team, in the tier, they will be quite happy trying to, protect that position because they've got nothing to lose. They don't want to injure players. They want to go full throttle, especially in like the 33rd game, and they've potentially got, you don't know what's going to happen in the future in terms of cup finals and stuff. So players do, I think, save themselves in some competitions. You see it all the time in Europe, but it can be annoying. So we're going to talk about rules because there's going to be 9 rule changes to the Premier League starting obviously on Sunday, I believe, with the Community Shield. So in terms of how it's going to work, I'll go through them. Substitutions, no more time wasting. So what Andrew just mentioned with time wasting, players have to get off the pitch at any point. So whatever side, if they're in a corner flag, they go off at the corner flag or the other touchline. Free kick walls, you cannot have any more than any defender. Defenders can be in a wall, but no attackers can be within 1 yard of that wall. So they can't be within the wall. So if you remember, a lot of players go in the walls trying to create spaces. Pain in the ass. Drop balls are gone. there's only one way of drop balls, and that I think is with the referees. If the referees intercept the ball by accident, if it hits the referee on the arse, for example, and it goes to another player, drop ball will be given there, but that's literally it. Goalkeeper behaviour of penalties has changed a little bit as well. They cannot touch the frame of the goal, they cannot move it, they cannot do anything with the goal to manipulate the movement or the eyesight of the attacker, which sounds daft, but some players punch the top of the bar. If you've noticed, Sammy Mignolet does it, a few others do it. So no touching of the goal frame, no movement, or one part of the boot has to touch the line when the penalty is taken. So they cannot come off their line, and obviously we've got VAR. So that could be an interesting rule to enforce. Goal kicks. A goal kick is in play from the moment the ball is kicked. And you can also, I think, pretty sure now, defenders can go into the box to receive the ball. Bit interesting. So there's a lot of things happening. Also, you've got accidental handballs. They will cease play, especially if it is a direct goal. Other things, and that's pretty much it. Random changes, but the main one's obviously substitutions, and the fact that the referee influence, and obviously handballs, VAR. So any opinions or thoughts about any potential rule changes that you may dislike? Certainly, we know about VAR, but we've just got to make do amend with that at the minute. I think the first year will be horrendous, I'm going to be honest with you.
I watched the Spurs-Real Madrid game, and Spurs played from goal kicks. They played two literally on the edge of the 6-yard box and played it short, and then straight back to the keeper to hoof it out. And I couldn't see the point in doing it.
Yeah,
I literally couldn't see the point of having two players. And I hope we don't bring that to the Premier League, because I think it's pointless. I understand we can have a player in the box for the quick goal kick, but having one either side, God knows where that's come from. But I don't think we're the only team to try it.
You can manipulate it by passing it to the other person, and they head it back to the goalkeeper, pick it up, and they can boot it. It's like, it's an odd one. It's going back to quite radical in terms of playing from the back, because you think in '92 when they brought in the pass back rule, it completely messed with people's minds. But players are now quite adept at playing with the feet. But I don't think they should have that rule. I think there should be a fine line where the goalkeeper's area is there, and the player should not be able to go in or receive the ball from it. That's my personal opinion, because the goalkeeper can play. It's not like it used to be. So I don't know. I think that one's the one that's like, really, you're just kind of making up stuff here. But I think it'll be interesting if it does come to the Premier League, because I think a lot of players will stutter and mess up, because there's only about 3 or 4 teams that can play really well out the back at the minute. I
think the trouble is as well, and a few examples was in that game. You play it to a defender who's not quick, or he has that slight doubt. You've got a fast striker. He's on him. And it happened twice in the Real Madrid game, and we ended up putting it out, literally on the edge of our box, because we panicked.
Every team will panic.
What a waste of a goal kick.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. I mean, there should be some sort of enforcement I don't know, because I do like teams playing from the back, but I also think there should be a fine line between, can they take the piss with time wasting? Can they pass it, start? Because if the other players are about, 20, 30 yards away, it wastes a little bit of time. So, I don't know. You don't want to go back a step with, passing the ball back to the goalkeeper to then pick it up. That was the olden days. But then to receive the ball short, pass it around a little bit, then try and, if they're good at it, they can probably get away with it. But personally, I think it's a bit of a backward step even for the game. Personal sort of opinion there.
I hate short corners. That's one of my pet hates in football at the moment. Drives him crazy. Matt Ritchie loves them, and it absolutely drives him crazy because we always waste it. So I would ban short corners. Things you have to put it in the box.
Short corners are good if you know what you're doing, but not. Well, to be fair though, I get very frustrated when you see corners hit the first man. It's like, really? You can play a professional, but you can't beat. You can't kick a ball high enough. It's like, doesn't make sense in my. Well, that's just me, but I'm not a footballer, so I don't know. In terms of other rules, then, have you heard about the sin bin rule?
No.
So in the lower leagues at grassroots level, they are trialing the sin bin rule that if you give dissent to a referee or, an official, you can be sin binned for 10 minutes.
Is there a limit? Is there a limit of how many players can get sin binned at a
Yeah, I
time?
can imagine that. I mean, everyone's effing and jeffing, and that's it. It's like, got 3 players left. Okay.
Yeah, Neil Warnock will be constantly sin binned, won't he?
So that's what they're trialing, and I think it's a good move in terms of having discipline with the captain to just speak to the official, because there's a lot of clubs that just have 20 players, or even the coaching staff go right to the referee. It's crazy. I think it will help, but I also think it's going to be really interesting if a goalkeeper swears at a referee or disagrees with a decision, because the rule is written in the handbook pretty much is if your goalkeeper gets sin binned, you got to swap them, and they come out as an outfield player until the ball goes out of play to then be swapped back into goal. It is a crazy rule. So there you go. That is what could be coming to the Premier League in a few years' time if it goes well. Imagine that. I mean, unbelievable. But
So you're going to have a dugout with the players and subs behind, and you're going to have a sin bin either side for the players.
it's crazy.
That's bizarre.
I know. I mean, I just don't get how.
Some of the lower league games I've been to, literally be more players on the sin bin than there will be on the pitch at some point.
Oh yeah, there will be, 100%, especially grassroots level. But I don't know how high it'll go up the pyramid in terms of its trial. But that's what they're trying.
I can't see it being Premier League.
I think there's a long way to go. I think they're going to bring in the captain speak to referees only rule first. I think that'll be the one that they need to do. I think that's what I would also bring in. I'd bring that in because I think there's a lot of teams that do try and manipulate. Like Chelsea were great for it with John Terry, for example, with his little personal touches and that.
And Arsenal.
Oh yeah, and Arsenal.
And United.
And United, yeah, definitely.
Roy Keane in Dandy D'Urso's face is so famous, isn't it?
Yeah, doesn't make sense, does it, sometimes? So let's move on. Shall we talk about some certain transfers that are going through at the moment? Sick of it, yeah? I am. So, Maguire. Let's talk about Maguire first. 80 million, is he worth it? Yes or no?
No. No way. Not a chance. You got Toby Alderweireld. The worst scenario is going to go for 40 million, half his value. I know I'd rather have at the back all day long.
There's a lot of players that are centre-backs are interesting because of obviously the stock has risen a little bit with Van Dijk playing well, and you've also got the likes of Sergio Ramos and players like that who have done well over time and won a lot of trophies. So everyone's like, oh, defenders are really, really important now. We've got to keep clean sheets, guys. But the stock price over the last 3 years of defenders alone have gone mental. Like, look at Wan-Bissaka, 50 million for a fullback. It's like, whoa. I mean, I didn't even think Walker was worth that much a couple of years ago, and that was 50 million. I can't think of any other fullback that is worth that much apart from the main ones at the minute at the top of the tree, and Wan-Bissaka is not even in the top 10 at the minute, not even in the top 20.
Has he gone for 80 million because he can ride a unicorn in a swimming pool? Is it like adding to his value?
I personally think he's still living off his World Cup performances because I watched him quite a few times for Leicester last year, and there were times where to be fair, there were times he's playing with Wes Morgan, who's not the same player that obviously won the league title. But for me, he didn't actually have that great a season. He had an okay season, I would say. And the price, again, I mean, I think it's the English premium price, basically, because he's English, he's playing for the national team. They've pushed up the price to 80 million, which is just, I mean, that's 10 more million than De Ligt. So it is actually crazy. So, but is he better than what United have got at the moment? Yes. Except for, I would say he's better than Smalling, he's better than Jones. So he is an improvement for them.
It's not really hard, is it?
No, I know, not hard. But and also Bailly's out for like 3 months. So they really need someone. So it is an improvement. But is it value for money? Well, United haven't been getting value for money for a while, have they?
They've been bent over a little bit over the last 2 years at least, because players know they'll pay well in wages and they'll want to force the move, but they're also, the owners are playing hardball. Like, hold on, you're Manchester United, you're one of the biggest teams commercially in the world. You brag about this, that, and the other, your profits. Give us more money. And more often than not, you've seen it. Like Crystal Palace probably put a bold figure there. Oh, 50 million. All right, cheers, cool. I mean, you can buy 2 or 3 defenders with 50 million for a team like Crystal Palace. Out of well, look at Liverpool's backline. In reality, you think there's only one big player that's like 75 million. All the rest of them are free. Pretty well. Andy Robertson was 8.5 million, but we sold Stewart to them to 8 million like a week beforehand. So technically pretty free. But in reality terms, you've got to think of a fullback and a centre back now. It's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, you got, who else went? Is it Tyrone Mings went for quite a bit of money for Aston?
Yeah, 20 million. Matthew Jagger, who's Southampton's backup left back, went for 10 million. I mean, exactly. A backup left back at Southampton.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy money.
Tyrone Mings went for 25 million.
The world has officially gone mad.
Looks like Lewis Dunk is going to go for 40 million to Leicester, rumour, to replace Maguire. So they've got an extra 40 million, whatever, to throw around at someone else. Possibly another striker to cover for Vardy or whatever. But the fundamentals in transfers are just unbelievable at the minute in terms of where they're getting the value from. I mean, you could talk about Man City spending every year, but they're not silly with it in reality terms. They've not really went over the 70 million mark. They've only bought 1 player this year, or 2, technically. But it's crazy when you think Harry Maguire, English centre back, who's, how old is he? 27? How old is he?
The difference as well with City, every player they've bought for big money have proved themselves and done well.
Yeah.
They've not wasted any money. Everyone they've bought is a quality player.
In the last 3 years, I can't, apart from Mendy with injuries, I can't think of a player who's flopped in the last 3 years.
No. You probably say John Stones is probably the one who's not achieved what you're expecting from him.
But in terms of the Pep Guardiola years, it's been a lot better than what it was at Mancini. You could say there was a lot of flops. You could say the same about obviously Mark Hughes, and he started it all off. But think of the transfers then to now. Vincent Kompany was bought for 6.5 million.
Wilfred Bonny for 30.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are just crazy, but you got to think every player's got a price. It's just what people are willing to pay for it. It's unfortunate for the player that they don't pick the price, but I think the stock value of defenders at the minute are coming quite stylish because of the way they're playing. Because they're kind of more out there at the minute in terms of, oh, that's pretty fashionable these days. You can get a fullback that runs up and down all day, puts in. Look at Liverpool, for example, 13 assists and 12 assists on either flank. That's pretty fashionable now, but people want that kind of, in a way. It's interesting. I like to look at transfers. I think it's cool to see what's doing well. But Aston Villa, for me, I think they'll be all right because they've spent a lot. They've done a Wolves. They've spent a lot of money. Norwich and who else? Sheffield United have not spent much, but they have bought players in.
Yeah, Sheffield United spent 20 million on McBurney today, so that was their record signing.
Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, so I think they're definitely looking. They're not going to be relying on Billy Sharp still. they're bringing in someone else to try and help get the goals to keep them up. But I mean, again, 20 million on someone who's not really played much in the Premier League. So
they've got Robo Morrison's a massive gamble. I mean, Phil Jagielka is a really good, experienced player on a free. And then you've obviously got Dean Henderson, he's been on more loans than I don't know what from Manchester United. So it's an interesting team. I don't think I rate the manager. I think he's brilliant man management, coaching sort of, frame of mind that he's got where he will improve players. But the Premier League is a different step up. I mean, you don't want to see what happened obviously with Huddersfield this last season. In fact, they were pretty dire in reality terms. So it's interesting. But Norwich as well. Norwich have spent a lot of money, but on very, very small fees that have added up to a couple of million. But you've got a few loans in there and a few free transfers. But I don't know who half of those players are.
Yeah.
Huddersfield last year, it's like they accepted they were going to get relegated before a ball was kicked. And didn't want to spend any money, which is a shame, really, because it was nice to see him stay up. But I think it was probably, if he was a betting man, it was the biggest bet of the year that Huddersfield will go down. It's like they'd already accepted it after the first game. They were going down. So what's the point of spending any money? Which is it's a shame, really.
Yeah, I think they got a bit burnt because they bought, I think it was Steve Mooney and Depotra, and they spent like over 10 million on both of those, and they both like flopped basically. So I think they got a bit scared and were like, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't be spending." They had Tom Ince, didn't they, as well, and let him go after a year as well. So they've had a few players who they've just spent quite big money, but then they haven't worked out, and they're like, "Well," because I think they do worry. Well, if we get relegated, we're going to be stuck with Premier League wages, and you only have to look at Bolton at the moment, who are needing loans from the PFA to be worried about what could happen.
I mean, there's the parachute payments, which I don't know how good it is, but obviously Huddersfield didn't spend much last year, so they'll have a bit in the bank. They'll probably go for it again this year, but I don't know. Depends on how many players you can keep retaining and what the wage structure is, if there's a bonus in there or if there's any sort of reduction because they got relegated. So
the Championship is the hardest league by far out of all the divisions. There's 8 or 10 teams every season that potentially can come up.
I think this year will be really good because there's obviously the teams that went down, they're actually quite financially stable. They're pretty decent teams in reality. But you've also got teams in there that missed out last year, like Leeds will probably go. Who else?
Bristol, likes of Bristol City and teams like that are always up there, aren't they?
Forest look good. Forest look really good this year. Like they've bought some decent players. I mean, I don't know. I think it's an interesting year for the Championship because I think the prizes are good, but every year there's always competition. But I think this year is going to be a lot of competition with, like, obviously who's actually in that league. I mean, I'm just going to get up here. Let's have a little look because that starts tonight, Middlesbrough.
Yeah, Middlesbrough playing Luton. Which
is Luton. Luton are like historically quite a big team, but they're like back in the league, aren't they? So I don't know. I think it's going to be a crazy year this year. I think it'll be good to watch.
I think the Championship is good to watch, but there's still big gaps between the Premier League and the obviously, Newcastle have been in it twice, and I did find that if you are able to, if you've got goals and you're good at corners, you've got a good chance in the Championship. So, like for me, the step up, like I remember Atsu was incredible in the Championship, looked amazing, and I thought, he's going to be amazing in the Premier League, and he's just not good enough in the Premier League. So there is big gaps between the step up between the Championship and the Premier League. I call it the Darren Huckabee effects.
Yeah, I could relate. Yeah, there's a lot of players like that who are really good in the Championship, and then they come up and like, I mean, look at Dwight Gale. He's another one.
Gale, yeah.
He's like, he'll score 25 goals in the Championship, but he will not score more than 5 or 6 in the Premier League. It's just one of them. I mean, there's some good teams in there. I mean, you've now got Charlton Athletic up there again. They could, you never know. I mean, the gap between the playoffs and that middle run is always tight. And you've obviously got Hull City, Forest, you've got West Brom, Stoke, Swansea. They're all big teams. Sheffield Wednesday, if they get, Derby, yes.
Derby got Philip Cocu as their manager.
That's crazy. You got Fulham as well. Fulham will probably come. I reckon Fulham will come up. I think Fulham will probably do well when the Scott Parker. They've kept most of their players as well. I don't know. I think interesting.
That's where that balloon payment comes in handy because it gives you that chance to come back up and retain the players. It's when you don't come back up and you've tied a player into a 3-year contract and you're still paying 50 grand a week to somebody in the Championship.
Like Sunderland. Sunderland got screwed with Jack Rodwell and Catamol, who were both on like 50, 60 grand. They weren't the players that they were, and they're paying huge wages for players who they don't really want, and they're stuck with them, basically.
Have you ever watched that documentary, the thing they done on Amazon, Sunderland? It made Rodwell look awful, didn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, as a Newcastle fan, obviously I did enjoy watching them, just get relegated. But generally, for Jack Rodwell, he's not going to get 62 grand anywhere else.
No. He'd be lucky to get another club.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not going to get there anywhere else. So would you leave the money? And at the end of the day, Sunderland gave him the money, So, I mean, I think clubs are very funny. Like when they want to get rid of someone, they make them out to be the bad person. But when it's the other way round and the player wants to leave, they say, "Oh, he's being demanding. He's not loyal." It comes in both ways, really.
It depends what situation the club want him to go. In Sunderland's case, they were absolutely skint, and they offered him basically a year's pay to go. And because he had a 2-year deal left, wherever it was, he said no. It's like you would have got a year's pay and you would have signed for another club, and he still said no. That's why I think he came over as a bit of a dickhead, to be honest with you.
But he probably thought, well, they'll probably get a new owner and they'll get money again. And Sunderland spent like 4 million on a striker last year in League One. So clearly they do still have money. They just didn't want to fulfill their contract. Because I think he went to Blackburn after that, and he's on probably like 10 grand a week. So to go from 60 to 10 grand, I mean, it's a big drop, isn't it?
I wish I had 10 grand a week.
I know.
Should we start a Just Giving page for him? Feel sorry for him now.
Yeah. I know. It is hard, obviously, with these sums of money, but, at the end of the day, would you take a pay cut?
I would.
Depends if you love the game, isn't it? He was
football.
quite happy to sit on the bench or sit in the stands every week.
I mean, look at Gareth Bale. Like, he's on 600 grand, and he's like, I can't play for nothing less than 600 grand a week. I mean, but
yeah, that's an annoying scenario as well. Now I think.
Yeah, he's shot himself in the foot there. I think a little bit.
Yeah. I think he doesn't do many interviews. That's another problem. So Real Madrid are being able to say whatever they want, and he's not responding. His agent comes out every now and again and says Zidane's a terrible person. How can he do this? But like Bale's not saying anything himself, which is the issue. Basically, if Bale came out and said, I've done this much, but
Bale's on a sticky wicket there, because if he does stay at Madrid, when he does play, I'll tell you now, he's going to get so much abuse from the home fans.
I mean,
they just don't like that type of person up there.
Yeah, but the Real Madrid fans whistled Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, I think their levels of expectation are just way too high. How can you whistle possibly one of the greatest players we've seen and say, oh, he's too greedy? He scored 350 goals or whatever for you. Like, just give him a bit of respect.
That's because I think most of the Madrid fans have been in their trophy room, and it takes about 45 minutes to walk round it. So I think they all see that and think, yeah, we could do that every year.
Yeah, I found when they booed Cristiano Ronaldo, I was just like, how can you respect these people? Like, and I think they found it when he's gone. They really missed his goals, didn't they?
They miss a lot. I think they miss a lot of his influence on just playing the game.
Yeah.
You've seen it quite apparent when, Zidane had to come back. It was like they were literally falling apart, and half the players just didn't want to play. But I think they've got some new blood in now, so they'll probably be all right.
They were 4 against Spurs, to be fair.
Marcello's assist for Harry Kane, that was great.
What, sorry?
Marcello's assist for Harry Kane.
That was a good call, that one, to be fair. Should we talk about Community Shield? Season is about to start in reality terms. Claudio Bravo is due to start for Man City because Edison is still on his holidays, and so is Fernandinho because they came back from pre-season with the Copa America. However, Liverpool have got Alisson and Firmino playing, so interesting to see where people's, what's the word?
Well, they played the full game.
As well, this thing about all these players need a rest. They're goalkeepers.
Alisson will definitely play. He's itching to go. He said in an interview, he's like, I miss the pitch, I miss everything. He's like, you can play. So what do you reckon will happen? Any score predictions or anything like that?
I think City will win because Liverpool, Salah and Mane must be knackered after the African Nations Cup, only finishing. I mean, Mane went all the way to the final as well.
He's still on holiday. He comes back on Monday. Salah's only played 45 minutes, so is Firmino. I mean, we've had our back line, apart from Alisson, we've had our midfield. So in terms of that, we might be a bit more ready. But a lot of teams have been interrupted this year with the Copa America, with the Africa Cup of Nations, and also the Nations League and stuff like that. It's not been as nice. I think it'll be a tough game. I think it'll be a very leggy game. I think it won't be as much ferocious kind of, because with City and Liverpool, they both play the same. I don't know. I think as a Liverpool fan, I want to win, but I also think we do not have the firepower to do it with, well, Divock Origi obviously can score, but he's not the same as Mane. Mane is, I said it last time, he's probably our best forward for making things happen anyways. It's different type of play. They're all different. They're all different in terms of how they play. But I think it'll be a good game, though. I think it'll be good to watch to get in the mood of things. But I don't know.
1-0 City for me.
I think it'll be a good game to watch, but I think it'll be like the Champions League final. It'll be very leggy and very decisive on a decision. And you've also got VAR and stuff now, so it's like, ooh, hello.
I'm surprised City haven't replaced Kompany, if I'm honest. I thought that would be a priority for them. Well, they're going in with Laporte, Stones, and Otamendi, and I know they might drop. Sorry,
pretty sure Laporte is injured.
Yeah,
I think he's a doubt, and you've obviously got Bravo in goal. You've got Laporte out, so it's like, ooh, well, their defence is looking a bit ropey, but then again, Liverpool's attack isn't. It's not fully there, so probably a blessing in disguise. But they've got no Fernandinho, who's their main anchor man, so the new guy will probably play. Rodri. But other than that, I don't know. I think it'll be an interesting game. I think Liverpool better set up defensively than Man City will be. That's how I look at it.
I think Brian, I really hope he stays fit for the whole season because he's a brilliant player. It was a real shame he had such an injury-prone season last year. I think he only started 12 games, so hopefully, we see him on the pitch more.
Yeah. There's a lot of players for Liverpool that look quite bright, though, as well. Youngsters. I mean, same for City in reality. Look at Phil Foden. Very, very exciting talent. You've got Ryan Brewster for Liverpool, British, English talent. Harvey Elliott looks unreal when you watch him. Considering he's only 16, it's like, Christ, you've got some balls, mate. I mean, he looks a great player. But you've also got to look at, is Liverpool gambling a lot with not buying a proven player to play left back, right back as cover? Because if Andrew Robertson gets knackered, we're a bit snookered. If Trent gets knackered, we're buggered. So there's only so many players you've got to cover. James Milner, left back, he'll do you a job, but not perfect. And you've got potentially Fabinho and Joe Gomez on the right side. It's not ideal, is it?
Because I think as well, Klein is out for 6 months as well, wasn't it? I know they were trying to offload him, but he's out now.
Yeah, I think they were going to keep him though. There was talk of him actually staying because he was because we've obviously got a lot of tournaments. Because you've got to think Liverpool play Man City on Sunday. They've got Friday. They've got Norwich, and then on the following Wednesday they've got to go to Turkey and play Chelsea. And then on Sunday they're playing someone else. I can't remember who off the top of my head, but they've also got to go to the FIFA World Confederations shit that they've got in Qatar before Christmas. It's like, we've got such a little squad, a quality squad, don't get me wrong, but there's only really 20 players you're going to use all the time. You can't rotate them all the time. You just can't. You can't rotate the likes of Mane, Firmino and Salah all the time. You've got to have at least 2 of them in there because you've only got the likes of Origi and Brewster to play. Man City is the same though. You've got to think that they have a squad of brilliant players, but they always keep the spine in. So I don't know. I think this year for fatigue is going to be interesting. Hello, dog. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting as well to see City as well if they let Sane go, because that deal's a deal which still could happen. And I think for me, he's my favourite wide player. So you've got, I think Sterling's amazing as well, but obviously Sane for me is the best one. I know he didn't have as much of an influence last year, but for me, he's the one who, I would be scared to face if I was a defender.
I agree with you there, because he came on against Liverpool last year and changed the game.
Changed the game, yeah.
Brilliant. But you've got to think Sterling over pre-season has started in the middle because Aguero's not back. Jesus isn't there because of Copa America. So it looks like Sterling will play up front on Sunday, he's not the greatest finisher in the world. We all know that, but positionally in his runs are brilliant. So it'll be a handful. And then you've got the wide men. Will they play Sané? Pending transfer? Don't know. Will they want to risk him getting injured? So I think for both teams there's a bit of issues with selection, because even Liverpool are the same. They're potentially going to offload Harry Wilson, who's a really good young player, but they could get 25 million for him because of his age and him being, well, he's Welsh, so it's a bit different. But, in reality terms, you've got to look at, will teams risk him? Welsh players aren't really that good, are they? Unless you're on 600 grand a week and you can play golf all the time.
So the one they were raving about so much a year ago, Ben Woodburn, they were going, he's gone to League One on loan. League One. I was like, I thought you were the next coming, next Gareth Bale, and he's gone to League One on loan. So yeah, that surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, he scored in a cup and he looked really good. He looked really sharp and he played a few times, and then he just kind of went off the bandwagon a little bit. He got injured and then that was it. But now he's like, he had one bad loan, now he's on another loan. So he's only 19, to be fair. It's quite young, but
yeah. Well, Harry Kane couldn't get a game at Norwich, could he? Or Leicester on loan.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. It was him, Vardy, and Drinkwater were on the bench in the Championship.
That's great.
Like a year or two later, they're fighting for the title, all three of them.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Kane, that's what I like about him in terms of him as a personality. I think he's got that grit to crack on. Even though he went on loan loads and loads of times. You've got a few players like that who have gone on loan loads, or they've started off from the non-leagues and they've done really well. Vardy, for example, worked his way up. There's not many. Glenn Murray is another example, but Harry Kane, for me, being at the top flight, at the top, and then thinking, I've got to go somewhere on loan, I've got to do this, that, and the other, a bit of a different lifestyle. He's done very well, considering he could potentially break the records of what Alan Shearer's got in terms of his goals.
He's not going to break it.
No, he's not far. If he has another 7 seasons at his rate of football, he's...
Not with his ankles.
Yeah, his ankle's a bit weak, I suppose.
With his ankle.
Once you've got a dodgy ankle, that's it. You've got to be careful. So I think he'll be fine.
It will go at some point this season again, guaranteed. It will go right at a crucial time, because it seems to be the time it goes, unfortunately.
When the Champions League phase is kicking again. To be fair, though, when he got injured the second time this year, it was an impact injury, so it's like, it's a bit shit. I mean, it was just one of those things. It just happens. It's not like he ran through on goal and fell over his blade of grass. So, injuries are a bugger.
Hello.
One of the time he did it, it was just on the slope of the pitch. Do you remember, as he slid off?
Yeah.
It was the angle of the pitch that he caught it on. That's bad.
Yeah, he was running, I think, and he just kind of skidded. Happens a few times with players, like even when they're running to the billboards and stuff.
What do you think of Pochettino's comments, Phil? That I'm just the head coach, I'm not the manager. I mean, I just found it a bit very public, and he's kind of trying to put the pressure on Daniel Levy to get him to sign. Because I mean, he spent 55 million on Dembele. Do you think he's just doing that to get De Celso and some other players in?
Yeah, to me, that was in he's justifying to the fans, well, if we don't buy anybody, it's not down to me because I don't get that choice. So it's like he's covering his back, really. Spurs tend to leave it to the last minute anyway and come out with a bit of a humdinger. Hopefully we will.
Yeah, or sell Berbatov and Carrick.
Didn't he say something before the Champions League final that if they won, he would leave?
Yeah, because I think that's what his goal is. That's probably as far as he thinks he can take any team.
But that isn't.
I know. I'm saying that.
I get that. I get that because I thought when Leicester won the league, Claudio Ranieri should have resigned there and then. He's never going to top that.
It depends.
There's only one way down. There's only one way for him to go, and it was down.
Yeah, he was never going to top that. He should have just left it. He would have been able to get whatever job he wanted. But then he stayed on, and look what happened.
It depends on the team, though. The life cycle of the team. Tottenham, for me, is like Liverpool and Man City. They're young. They've got some good players in good all-round positions. If they won the Champions League, they just have to buy a couple more players, and then that was it. The difference between the life cycle of Liverpool and Tottenham, in reality of that term, Liverpool had a stronger 16, for example, compared to what Tottenham had at the time. But they still got a really strong team. Whereas with Leicester, fair play, well done. You've done an absolute miracle. Bow your hat and off you go. But I think he would have been absolutely crazy if Spurs won the Champions League and he left, and then they went and put in 100 million on like 3 really good players that would build the squad up, and all the players who were on 1 year, 2 year, 3 year contracts who are a bit, underpaid in what level they're at, signed up again. You'd be like, I would have had a team for 5 to 10 years there. So it's always an interesting question. But I personally think he's pissed off. I think he's annoyed with how certain things are happening behind the scenes, and I think he's just airing his frustrations to try and hopefully get them to solve stuff. But I don't think it's that bad. I think it's just him. His word of English isn't the greatest sometimes. He does have a bit of a poor selection, but I think he's absolutely brilliant.
He probably does want more say in the transfers, and I think this player's just being suggested all around in the media. And it's like, how many times does he get asked about players? It must drive him mad.
It's the same for any coach, isn't it?
Yeah, he knows what players the club are potentially looking for, and as every name is thrown at him, I get to the point of, where are you getting these names? I'd say the same thing. Look, it's not me that makes these decisions. Which, at the end of the day, I would imagine, what I would hope, that he would put forward, right, we need a right back, centre midfielder, left winger, blah blah blah. Go and have a look. I don't think he'd have specific targets, because players change, don't they, as well? And situations change with contracts within the clubs. Like Ericsson, is he going? Is he not? Do we need someone to replace him? Is he going? We don't know yet still. If Ericsson goes, I have no doubt we'll come in for someone in midfield. If Ericsson stays, do we need someone else?
Yeah. I think Daniel Levy has quite a big say in transfers, because I remember reading Harry Redknapp, and he was saying that, like, Daniel Levy came out of nowhere and said, "Oh, would you be interested in Rafael van der Vaart?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, why don't you go get him?" And he went and signed him. So rather than it coming from Harry, I want this player, like. And then there was some weird stuff, like I think you guys signed Ryan Nelson and Louis Saha, which came out of nowhere. So it does seem that Daniel Levy does control a lot of the transfer policy. Probably he's got advisors, but he does control, which maybe Pochettino kind of annoys him a bit.
A mate of mine is convinced Daniel Levy plays FIFA, and if he has a good game with someone, he attempts to sign him.
Football manager. It's like Sam Allardyce, isn't it? That's what Sam Allardyce used to do, a bit of Football Manager. It's unbelievable when you think about what detail goes into a squad, but a team must have about 50 targets for one position. Surely they can't just go for 5. Like, we'll go for him, and maybe him if he's, if we fail on the other 4. But they've got to know what they're doing. But sometimes you look at some clubs, you think they're a bit clueless, aren't they? Like, look at Manchester United. We all laugh at what they've been doing the last couple of years. And even today, you think, how much are they spending on him? But there must be a decent thought mechanism, which we're obviously just minions, really. We're just here for opinions and just laugh at people.
The biggest problem as well with the English clubs, because the Premier League is the best supported league and watched league in the world, soon as a English club or a top 4 or 6 club come in for any player, they just add a couple of noughts onto the transfer fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's the same.
crazy.
Say for example, someone sold a big player. So say, look at Coutinho for example, right? If a player knows that, oh God, they've just lost Coutinho. Oh, I don't know, they've got 140 million. Oh, Liverpool are after attacking midfielder. Let's just bump up the price. That's another problem as well. It's like people just hold the ransom. It's scary.
Yeah. It's a situation that I imagine it's probably at top 8 or 10 clubs in the Prem have. As soon as they ask for a player, they just think, oh, English team, bang, here we go.
Yeah.
It's never the other way around, is it?
No, and Levy's he's a stubborn git. That is for sure, and he won't be able to ransom. In one way, I admire him that way. Where other clubs give in and pay the money, e.g., 80 mil for Maguire, even from that, I still think that's bizarre. The more I think about it, it's sinking in my head. It's hurting my head. But Levy won't stand for it, and I do admire him for that. But then we have bought some stinkers in the past where he's obviously put the name about, and they've turned out to be crap.
Yeah, and Florentino Perez said that he didn't want to buy Ericsson. This is unofficially, but one of the reasons was he didn't want to have to deal with Daniel Levy again. He was so scarred when he did the Bale and Modric deals that he just doesn't want to deal with him again.
Yeah.
It was a good deal we got for Bale, 89 million to be fair, because he was quite injury prone then. He was a great player, but 89 million we got for him was a good deal
as well.
Yeah, Modric was a good. I'm glad Modric went. I love Modric. He was a great player for Spurs, but at the time, the Spurs team, he was wasted. He was too good for the team, and I'm glad he's gone on to win stuff because, as probably you've seen now, he's probably ain't a harder working player on a pitch. He runs his socks off every game, and he was like wasting his time at Spurs, and everyone could see it. Everyone knew he was going to go, and he deserved to go. That's why I don't think any Spurs fan would ever slag him off, because he deserved where he went to, because he was the ideal fit for the Madrid team at the time. It was sad to see him go, but as I say, he deserved to go, and he never left on a bad note or anything, Modric.
Yeah, that was like Liverpool with Xabi Alonso. Same sort of reasonings at the time. Yeah. Legend still. Anyways, we'll wrap it up. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Phil. Don't forget to subscribe and all that good stuff. And obviously check out the links to the telegrams.